Hello, this is Chris Ott, and this video is about some misunderstandings that people have about Meher Baba's description of reincarnation. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and it occurred to me that people really don't know this. I mean, followers of Meher Baba do not know what he teaches and how it's different from others. And I'm going to go over this. Now, some of this will be easier for young people to follow. As I've said before, when it comes to the way in which perception is like computer games, where I make an analogy there, the younger the people are, the better they'll get that idea. By the way, I long ago when I first had my concept, and I hadn't written even my first book, I knew this family, and I used to go over with Megan, and the woman had a daughter Megan's age, and she had a son that was 15. I remember just telling him a bit, and he immediately got it because he was young, and he compared it to computer games, and he told me about computer games, and I had never played any of those console games before myself. But later I did, and then I saw what he was saying. And that guy today he would be about 35. And then he was 15. So that always stuck in my mind as an important point, is that as time goes on, many of the things that are hard for people to understand will get easier. And one of the ways in which that has occurred is all the virtual reality movies that came out in the 90s. And I'm going to show a list of some of those. Also the holodeck that was introduced in Star Trek is very interesting, because it's a virtual reality where you perceive things, but they're not physically really there. Anyway, that creates a really useful analog for many of the things I talk about, and I mentioned that in my second book. All right. That was a little bit of an aside. Let me get into this. Reincarnation. Normally, when we think of reincarnation, or we think of what's called transmigration of the soul. Right here in the dictionary on this Apple computer, it says the rebirth of a soul in a new body. Okay, that doesn't have anything to do with what Baba says. There's no rebirth of a soul, and the soul is not in a body. It's not in your body. This will seem a little odd to people. That's why I'm doing this video. So I'll try to explain this. Okay. Let's just go to Wikipedia. Reincarnation, also known as rebirth or transmigration, is the philosophical or religious concept that the non-physical essence of a living being begins a new life in a different physical form or body after biological death. Okay, that is not what Meher Baba teaches. The soul never dies, so there's no rebirth of it, which is in both my Apple dictionary and in Wikipedia, rebirth of this soul. That's not a thing. Also, the implication is that it migrates. So let's see. Transmigration. Let's look up transmigration. Actually, what we'll do, because I want to make a point about this, is online etymology dictionary. Let's see where the root of the term transmigration comes from. So this is the part that Baba does not teach. All right, that's actually only one part that he says does not teach. Transmigration from change of country. That's its normal meaning. Noun of action from past participle stem of Latin transmigrare, to wander, move, to migrate. From trans, which means across or beyond or over, and migrate. So you migrate over to another body. Originally literal in reference to the removal of the Jews into the Babylonian captivity. General sense of passage from one place to another is attested to from the 14th century. Then also the sense of passage of the soul after death into another body, first recorded in English in the 1590s. Okay. That's transmigration. That's where the root comes from, and that's the general meaning of reincarnation. Is that the non-physical essence, or the soul, literally moves across space and time, because over a passage of time, after death, later, and somewhere else that it is moved to, it enters a new body. Or maybe it enters the mother, and then that's what's conception, is perceived as. But either way, you have a literal movement of soul. Okay. Now, Baba doesn't teach this concept of soul in that way at all. It doesn't exist in his teaching, although it can seem like it, because he immediately in God Speaks, he speaks about the Atma, or soul. Or it's actually souls. All souls are in the Oversoul. That's the beginning of his book, God Speaks. But then he says all souls are the Oversoul. So when we read more into Baba, when we read and study his writing, we see that there's only one soul. There is only the Oversoul. All souls are the Oversoul. There's none other. And soul, also called self, there's only one. There's only one self. And that self, or soul, or Oversoul, or Paramatma, is God. And in Baba, there's only God. So in Baba, there's only this one soul. That's all there is. Everything else is an illusion in the imagination of that one soul, or it's individual atmas, which are just sort of in an illusory sense experience ourselves as separate, but we're not separate. We're all the one soul. We're all God. And God is indivisible. He doesn't have parts. We're not parts of God. We all are God. But if you read God Speaks, you get to understand how it's possible that we develop, each one of us, a sense of individual consciousness while still remaining the one God. And so God realization is a treasured final goal and experience of every soul, and it is experienced individually, and it is retained individually, and yet each one of those individuals is God. So you read the book and you see how that's possible. Now, this one soul or self, or Atma, or Paramatma, or Oversoul, or God, doesn't move anywhere. It doesn't transmigrate anywhere. And it can't be in your body because your body doesn't exist. Your body is an illusion. I'm going to have to, that's why it comes up about these computer games and why they're helpful, because we'll talk about that in a moment, how your body can actually be an illusion, and yet you perceive it and you feel it and everything, and you identify with it, and yet you're not really in it. Well, let's just use that analogy just for a moment. In a first person, what's called a first person shooter game, but it's really just first person, doesn't have to be shooting, but usually they do have some kind of shooting going on. In these games that are first person, where is the person that's the witnessing the game? Well, he's on a couch somewhere with a console controller in his hands. And he's forgotten even that he's there. He's sort of so absorbed and immersed in the game that he kind of forgets that he's sitting on the couch in the living room. But he's not really in the TV. He's really on the couch. He doesn't really move anywhere. Just the backgrounds move, apparently are moving according to laws of nature as he walks along using his controller. Now, in Baba's teaching, there's only really this one witness, this one self, which you could call God, or you could call self with a capital S, the self, or you could call the soul with a capital S, or the oversoul, or the Paramatma, which simply means supreme soul, para, supreme, Atma, soul, in Sanskrit. All these are just terms for the same thing. So, there's more names, the hundreds of names of God or the self, but there's only one referent. There's only one God with many names. And in Baba's teaching, it alone exists. God alone is real. All else is illusion. Now, but God passes through this journey of illusion, in order to realize himself. And that's the subject of his book, God Speaks, The Theme and Purpose of Creation, 1955, still in print, by the way. So, so the soul is not in space and time, because space and time are part of the illusion that it is experiencing when it finds itself in the illusion. But it itself is not in space and time. Now, how could that be? Well, I've given an analogy many times, and I'll show that, where you look through, you think of time and space as lenses, and God is looking through those lenses. And so the things that God perceives appear to be in time and space, but God's not in time and space. Okay? Okay, so now I have some quotes. Let's see. Baba describes the journey of the soul in terms of 4 total journeys. Like this 4 parts of the journey in his book, God Speaks. He says, but in reality, these 4 journeys are never journeyed, for God has nowhere to journey. Okay. So it gives you an idea that it's unchangeable, and it's immovable, it's indivisible. The reality, the self. Okay. Now, when I say that in Baba's teaching, he's not teaching, when he talks about reincarnation, he's not teaching transmigration of the soul. So I thought that might raise some eyebrows, so I thought in this video I'd give a corroborating quote. Now this quote is from C.B. Purdam's book, The God-Man, which is a biography of Meher Baba that was approved by Baba. It was requested by Baba, in fact. And it's published in 1964, at least I'm not sure if there's an earlier edition than 1964 or not, but that's the one that I'm quoting from. Now, The God-Man, The Life, Journeys, and Work of Meher Baba with an Interpretation of His Silence and Spiritual Teaching. C.B. Purdam, London, Allen and Unwin, 1964, page 422. It says, Purdam writes, reincarnation is not the transmigration of souls, which in its crude form is fantasy. And that book was approved by Baba. So you literally, for a while I was saying that because I recognized that from reading Baba's books. But I didn't know that Charles Purdam had noticed it too and had written that too. Meher Baba describes something really different. Meher Baba has this consistent system of sanskaras, which are impressions left upon the mind by experience, which then color or even cause future experiences. And it's this is his system. It's kind of like the mechanics of the universe, by which he explains how this illusory universe came into expression and its purpose for doing, the purpose for it happening. And what the soul, the one soul, does is it gathers sets of impressions. So this is what creates the sense of separate individuality. It's sort of like a partition, but it's all the one self. So the one self has a certain set of sanskaras gives to God that the experience of itself as so-and-so, and a different set of impressions give it the sense and experience of itself as such and such, something else, a creature or a person. And when death happens, the body fails, and then the soul, the one soul that is experiencing itself through those impressions, it then ceases to identify with that form, that individuality, and then it's still left with the impressions left over from that life. You have to read God Speaks to get this, but this is throughout the book. And then those impressions left by the previous life form a mold for the next body, and then the soul, which feels itself to be individual and separate, it then identifies itself with that next form as a baby. Okay, so it's identification and disidentification, which accounts for what we call birth and death, not a coming and going of a soul. It's kind of like I'm watching a movie and I'm identifying with Cary Grant, and then the movie ends, and now I'm watching another movie and I identify with Charlton Heston. Okay, so I didn't go anywhere. I didn't leave Cary Grant. I didn't go into Charlton Heston. It's that I identified, and then I disidentified, and then I identified with a new character that I will express the impressions gathered from the previous experience. And this is right away in God Speaks. You can pick it up and you begin reading like this. It even explains evolution this way. And the goal is to, once all these are acquired and you reach the human state, at a certain point you begin to lose these impressions, and then you finally experience reality, which is self. So the goal is really for the self to realize itself. It's called self-realization. Self-realization. Okay. So now I'm going to give some quotes. Now I already gave some of these. This might, if somebody's watched my previous video, The Point, they may have seen some of these quotes already, but I'm going to go over them because they express this idea. Okay, this is kind of a long quote, and I'm going to have it scroll, and I'm going to read it here. Okay. Imagine that a man having 25,000 eyes is present here, but that his faculty of, he's giving this as a metaphor, as an analogy, so that we can understand this concept of one soul experiencing itself as all these different people that are walking around, and even the animals and the mosquitoes, that this one God is experiencing itself as each one of us. And so he gives this account of many eyes with different lenses. Imagine that a man having 25,000 eyes is present here, but that his faculty of sight is only one, which means that the sight which sees through these 25,000 eyes is only one. Now imagine further that each eye is wearing an eyeglass of a different color, and imagine a ball in front of the man. The ball, the sight sees only one ball through those 25,000 eyes, but through the eye wearing the red eyeglasses, it will see the ball is red. Through the eye wearing the yellow eyeglasses, it will see the ball is yellow. The sight is only one. The ball is only one. But this means that only the one self, through different subtle bodies and different gross bodies, that is, through the different states of jiva and mind, jiva means body, so body and mind, takes different experiences of the one universe. So it's all one soul taking experience of the universe through these different bodies. Okay, let's another quote. All these three bodies, Baba describes three bodies. You have to read God Speaks to see what he means. He means the mental body, the subtle body, and the gross body. But just don't need to concern yourself with that here. All these three bodies are false. And the mind taking the subtle and gross experiences through these bodies is also false. But the one who exists in these three bodies and through the subtle and gross bodies takes the experience of the subtle and gross universe. That one alone is real, is omnipresent, and is the unlimited oneness. That one is the only one who hears through all ears, smells through all noses, speaks through all tongues, and thinks through all minds. That same one, God, meaning the same one self, the same one Paramatma, which means Supreme Soul, exists in all minds and all bodies. And another quote. These quotes, incidentally, are from the Intelligence Notebooks that by Baba, written in 1925. And I have my own version of them, which I did from the original transcripts and the original manuscript. And you can find that in the show notes under this video, and you can download that for free. I'd give that way. Now here's another quote. It's also from the Intelligence Notebooks by Baba, written in 1925. It is Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, that speaks through the mouth of one and listens through the ears of another. Okay, so now we've gotten rid of a few concepts here. We've gotten rid of the concept of a whole bunch of souls, like for every body there's a soul in it. We've also gotten rid of the notion that the soul is a thing in a body. It's not. It is experiencing itself as the body, but it is not in space, let alone in the body. Space is an illusion. Baba makes that totally clear. So is time. So are all distinctions illusory. And so we've also we've gotten rid of the transmigration, and we've gotten rid of the notion that you have a soul in your body that leaves your body. Now there is something that does leave a body that the soul seems to identify with, and that's called your subtle body. And that's beyond the scope of anything that I ever talk about. It's just too makes things too complicated. And but let's say you were in surgery. Some people have reported seeing their body. They're in anesthesia. They can see their body in there, like somewhere above, looking down. They see the doctors and they hear the conversation. Well, it's possible that that's through your subtle body, but all the same holds that I've already said. The soul isn't in the subtle body. This sounds strange, but you have eyes, and in the materialism they assume the eyes see or the brain sees, but that's not the case. In Baba's teaching, the body is blind. The body can't see. The eyes can't see any more than a camera can see or a microphone can hear. It is only by identification with the body and taking experience of the body as yourself that you experience through the body. It's kind of like you experience the movie studio through your television, but you're not really in the movie studio where they shot the film, So your body is kind of like your television that connects you to the world, but you're not really in the world. As I've said before, there's a quote. It's truer to say that the world is in you than that you are in the world, because it's in the sense that it's in your imagination, who are in turn in God's imagination. All right, I think I'm done here. That's all I had to say. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for my breathing today, but I've been having some problems there. Okay. Take care, and Jai Baba. Bye-bye.